Pierce, if you don't mind me saying, I think your wife would be proud. That one got me. I swallowed hard and managed a tight smile. Let's hope so. I didn't tell him I'd be sleeping in a one-bedroom apartment that night, or that I was moving in secret like a man on the run from his own past. Jason didn't need to know that. The drive to Sunset Vista was quiet. I took the back roads, past the park where Emily learned to ride her bike, the library where Margaret and I once read aloud to kids on Saturday mornings. I passed by all the lives we used to live. And then I left them behind. Joanne met me at the front desk with a folder and a friendly smile. Unit 104, she said. End of the hall. Garden view. We've stocked the fridge with a few basics. I nodded, thankful for the small kindness. The apartment was small but clean. Neutral walls, soft carpet, no smells. It reminded me of a hotel room you'd check into during a snowstorm. Not warm, but safe. I put Margaret's photo on the nightstand first, then her reading glasses, then the little ceramic angel she'd kept on her dresser since the day Emily was born. The silence in that room wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. For dinner, I walked 2 blocks to a diner called Millie's. The waitress was young with a ponytail and tired eyes. She brought me meatloaf and mashed potatoes without fuss. I tipped her well. On the way back, I stopped by the leasing office. Joanne was closing up, but she waved me in. "How's it feel?" she asked. "Strange," I said honestly. "But not bad." She smiled and gestured to the community bulletin board. "We do bingo Tuesdays and movie nights on Fridays. You don't have to be social, but you're welcome to." I appreciated that. Before bed, I opened my laptop at the small dining table and started researching banks. Not the big ones. I didn't want Emily finding anything through their old shared connections. I needed somewhere small, discreet, local. Boise First Heritage Bank caught my eye. Family-owned. Private accounts. No online tracking unless requested. I made an appointment for Monday. Then I wrote a note in my notebook. Don't just hide the money, protect it. Not out of spite, out of principle. Because this wasn't revenge. Not really. It was a reminder. To Emily, to Scott, and maybe even to me. That being old didn't mean being blind. That kindness wasn't weakness. And that sometimes the quietest man in the room was the one holding all the power. If you're still watching, comment 1, so I know you're still with me. Monday morning, I shaved, put on a clean shirt, and left my apartment feeling sharper than I had in years. Not younger, that ship had sailed, but clearer. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked into Boise First Heritage Bank, a modest brick building with ivy crawling up the walls and flower beds at the entrance. It looked like a place where people still knew your name, where handshakes mattered more than passwords. Inside, a woman in her 50s with silver bangs and a floral blouse greeted me with a smile. "Good morning, sir. Do you have an appointment?" "I do." "Walter Pierce. I'm here to open a private account. Mr. Pierce, of course." "Please have a seat. Mr. Leland will be right with you." Moments later, a man who looked just shy of 50 approached with a folder in one hand and a warmth that wasn't forced. "Mr. Pierce, welcome." "I'm Craig Leland, Private Client Services. Right this way." His office was quiet and smelled faintly of leather and coffee. A diploma from the University of Idaho hung behind his desk. Family photos lined a narrow shelf. Wife, 3 kids, a dog. A life built in slow, sturdy layers. "I understand you recently sold a property," Craig said after pleasantries. "And you're looking to secure the proceeds in a new account." "That's correct," I said. "It was a private sale, and I'd like the funds to remain separate from any prior institutions. No joint access. No online visibility unless I request it." Craig didn't blink. "That's not unusual. We offer full discretion for our private clients. Once we verify the wire transfer, we can arrange daily limits, withdrawal protections, even a private mailbox, if you prefer. I nodded. That's what I want. Privacy, simplicity, security. Understood, he said, already typing. May I ask what your plans are for the funds, retirement relocation investment? I plan to live quietly, I said, and make sure no one can touch what isn't theirs. That answer seemed to satisfy him. We completed the paperwork. He walked me through the process to transfer the full $890,000 minus closing fees into my new account. By Wednesday, the money would clear. It'll be safe, Craig assured me, and accessible to no one but you. That's exactly what I need. That afternoon, I stopped by a small electronics store tucked beside a coffee shop downtown. The kind of place that sold more radio parts than smartphones. I liked it immediately. I'm looking for a hidden camera, I told the man behind the counter. Small, discreet, motion activated. He nodded like this wasn't the first time someone had walked in with that request. Streaming or just recording? Streaming, I said. And I need to control it from my phone. He showed me a device shaped like a standard wall charger. Wi-Fi enabled 12-hour battery motion alerts. People usually stick these in entryways or living rooms. Looks like it belongs. That'll do, I said, paying in cash. Back at the apartment, I tested it on the coffee table. The app synced easily. The video feed was clear enough to read the fine print on a cereal box from across the room. I turned it off and stared at the device in my hand. It wasn't for revenge. It was for proof. The last step was the letter. I took out a sheet of heavyweight paper, the kind Margaret had used for thank you notes, and began writing in the slow, deliberate penmanship she'd always loved. Emily and Scott. If you're reading this, it means you came back expecting one version of your future and found another. Yes, I heard your conversation. The one where you called me a burden. The one where you planned to sell my house while I was still alive to help fund your dream home. You forgot who raised you, who paid your tuition, who worked double shifts and gave up retirement plans so you could have a head start. You forgot that this house wasn't just a building. It was your mother's legacy, my life's work. But I didn't forget. I've sold the house. I've secured the funds. I've moved on, not out of anger, but clarity. You have 30 days to collect your belongings from storage. After that, they're no longer my concern. You called me confused. I hope this letter clears that up. Love, Dad. I folded the letter, slipped it into an envelope, and wrote their names on the front in ink that didn't shake. The plan was in motion. And for the first time in a long time, I slept without waking once. Thursday afternoon, I drove back to the house, the one I'd built, the one I no longer owned, the one that would by tomorrow belong to someone else entirely. I still had legal access. The paperwork hadn't closed yet, and Jason said the buyers wouldn't do their walkthrough until Friday morning. I had one last evening. That's all I needed. The neighborhood looked the same, but I didn't. I had changed. The man behind the wheel was no longer the Walter Pierce who waited by the phone for his daughter to call. I wasn't anyone's burden anymore. I parked a few houses down and walked the rest of the way with the camera tucked in my jacket pocket and the letter sealed in a plain white envelope. Unlocking the front door with my old key, I stepped inside for the last time. The house smelled like lemon polish and spring air. Jason's crew had done their job. The furniture was gone, the shelves empty, the carpet vacuumed in perfect lines. But I still saw it all. Margaret in the kitchen humming as she stirred sauce. Emily barefoot in her prom dress, spinning in front of the mirror. Me standing on a ladder in the living room trying to hang a ceiling fan straight while Margaret laughed at my language. The silence now wasn't peaceful. It was surgical, as if the house itself had been scrubbed clean of our lives. I moved quickly. I plugged the camera into the front hallway outlet behind the small console table still left for staging. I angled it carefully, making sure the lens captured the entryway and the door. I opened the app on my phone and watched the live feed blink into focus. Perfect. Then I took the envelope from my jacket and taped it to the inside of the front door at eye level. They wouldn't miss it. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. I didn't feel triumphant. Not angry, just done. Done giving more than I received. Done being the man who was always available, always generous, always assumed to be too old or too tired to notice what was slipping away. Before leaving, I walked one final circuit of the house. In the kitchen, I touched the counter Margaret had chosen, remembering how she'd joked that the gold veins in the granite reminded her of sunlight trapped in stone. In the living room, I glanced at the space where the bay window once held her reading chair, a blanket always folded just so. In the hallway, I looked up at the wall where the family photo had hung for nearly 2 decades, now replaced by a bland canvas painting of sunflowers for the staging. I walked to the back door, opened it, and stepped out onto the porch. The garden beds were neat but bare. The daffodils we'd planted had come up again. They always did, no matter how cold the winter. I whispered one final thing to Margaret's memory. You were right. About all of it. Then I closed the door behind me, turned the lock, and left the keys on the kitchen counter. Back in my car, I opened the camera app and checked the feed again. The image was crisp, the door, the envelope, the afternoon sun slanting across the floor. All I had to do now was wait. Emily and Scott would be back tomorrow. And when they came through that door, or tried to, they'd learn exactly what happens when you mistake silence for surrender. Friday afternoon, at exactly 4:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the camera app without hesitation. The image blinked to life, the front entryway of the house I no longer called home. Sunlight pooled on the floor. Then a shadow moved across the threshold. Emily. Hair pulled back, suitcase in tow, high heels clicking on the walkway. Scott followed behind, sunglasses perched on his head, barking into his phone about liquidating options and restructuring proposals. Same tone he used at our dinner table when he was just between jobs. I watched from the screen of my phone in my new apartment, sitting on a thrift store recliner that didn't yet know the shape of my back. Emily reached for the doorknob with the ease of someone returning to a place they assumed was theirs. The key didn't turn. She tried again, then again, jiggling, forcing. Her brow furrowed. She stepped back, glanced at Scott. Did Dad change the lock? Scott's phone conversation halted mid-sentence. He walked over, took the key from her, tried it himself. The same result. No way, he muttered. He wouldn't even know how. He must have called someone. Emily said, her voice rising. Why would he? Then she saw it. The envelope taped to the inside of the glass. Her name written in my careful, deliberate script. She pressed her face to the window, squinting. Then slowly she turned the handle again, as if disbelief could force open what intent had already closed. It's locked, she whispered. Scott tried the back door, gone from frame for a few moments, then returned shaking his head. Garage is shut too, he said. No access. I'll call him, Emily said, pulling out her phone. But I'd already canceled my old number. It rang into nothing. She tried again and again, then threw the phone back into her purse, hands trembling. This doesn't make sense, she said. It makes perfect sense, Scott snapped. He found out. Emily's face crumbled. She pulled a bobby pin from her hair, a habit from childhood, when she was nervous, and stared at the note again. Scott reached into his bag and pulled out something, a small flathead screwdriver, I couldn't tell. He stepped out of frame and I heard the faint clink of metal on metal. They were trying to break in. I leaned back in the chair and took a sip of cold coffee. The feed wobbled slightly as the camera caught the front door